This is My First Job in Sports web series, presented by SBR Net, your comprehensive source for sports data to the academic community. Here are the hosts of My First Job in Sports, Neil Schwartz and Dr. Lyndsey Darvin.
Welcome to this edition of My First Job in Sports, the show that provides you a little bit of inspiration, motivation, and navigation to help you get that all-important first job in sports. I'm your host, Neil Schwartz. I'm here with my co-host, Dr. Lyndsey Darvin, also known as Dr. Lyndsey. Dr. Lyndsey, how you doing?
I'm good, Neil. How are you doing?
Good. You know, I've been following along with all of your travels. It seems like you've been all over the country in the last couple of weeks. Tell us a little bit about where you've been and what you've been doing.
Which is so funny because I do have flight anxiety. So that's a little fun fact about me. So the fact that I do travel all over is kind of ironic. Yeah, so I was out in California for a research conference, the Western Academy of Management Conference out in Long Beach. That was great. Super cool experience. Got to present some of my research there on women leaders in sport. And then I was at the PAX East conference in Boston just last weekend, presenting on a panel on diversity in esport and the role of esport in driving diversity on campuses. And that was awesome too. We got to plug Syracuse a little bit at PAX East, which was great because we obviously are starting the new esport program. So we tried to not make it all about Syracuse, but it was a very cool experience. The audience was awesome. They asked great questions. So, and PAX East is huge. They sold out. I mean, they had a couple 100,000 people there. So it was awesome.
You know, it's interesting you say that. I was at the Sports Pro media event in New York last week, and there was a panel there about, you know, the time is now for women. And there was the commissioner of, commissioner of the LPGA, commissioner of the NWSL. Did I get that right, by the way? And then there was another, I forgot the other person, but they were talking, you know, and you know what? That week, SBRnet released our annual sports fan data. And one of the things that we saw is just an incredible amount of fandom growth among women's sports, not just, you know, WNBA and maybe some of the ones you might think of, but, you know, collegiate women's sports and professional women's sports. And, you know, I know you're very involved with women's sports. And of course, this week, you know, the women's Final Four, the women's national basketball tournament just garnered a ton of attention. And it wasn't just Caitlin Clark, although she did get a lot of attention. But I know you're heavily involved in that. In fact, I know you're going to the semifinals and then to the finals. Talk a little bit about your involvement with collegiate NCAA basketball.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, I research this area, right? So I study women and girls in sport quite a bit, both in traditional sport and in esport, but the growth is tremendous and it's a cool time to be involved in it. I write for Forbes, so I'm able to get media credentials. So I'm credentialed to go out to the Sweet 16 and Elite 8 in Albany. I wish I could go out to Portland, Oregon, but that's a little bit of a trek. But it is cool. I mean, I've been telling my students, I'm like, to have Iowa, South Carolina, UCLA, Notre Dame right here in Albany playing all of these games, get out to Albany, right, to watch those games. It's going to be very exciting. And then I'll be traveling to the Final Four the following weekend to cover some of those games out there. Hopeful that some of the big hitters are in it, like South Carolina and Iowa. We hope that they make it. But it is, you know, the growth is tremendous. I think they had almost 300,000 attendees for the first two rounds of the women's tournament total, right? So the time is now. And a lot of coaches are saying that. A lot of folks in the media and sport business are saying that the time for women's sports truly is now. And what I always like to say is preferences don't develop in isolation. So the amount of coverage that women are finally getting is just leading to more fandom and more viewership. So if you build it, they will come. That truly is what's happening here. And we knew that the market was large for women's sports, but now we're just seeing the result of consistent promotion and marketing, which is great.
You know, our data backs that up exactly. I mean, we are seeing just tremendous growth. And you're right, the time is now. This is the time for businesses, brands, advertisers to really get behind women's sports, you know, and also from a value standpoint, it provides a great value because, you know, this is just the start of this big wave. And, you know, they say all boats go up on a rising tide. This, folks, is definitely a rising tide, and we're definitely seeing it. So, you know, Dr. Lyndsey, you are in a good place at a good time for sure. So let's get to our guest, Blake Taub. He's works as an account executive for the New York Islanders, and we want to welcome Blake Taub to the show. Blake, welcome to My First Job in Sports.
Appreciate it. Nice to be here with you guys. I'm grateful for the opportunity.
Blake, we're really excited. Of course, you're a fellow Syracuse grad, and we do get a little Syracuse intensive from time to time. In fact, our last guest, Caitlin Cummings, is the associate director of compliance at Syracuse Athletics. But Blake, you have followed quite a different path, as far as your situation and what you're doing now. I know you're with the Islanders. Blake, why don't you do this? Give us a little bit of your background, where you're from, and kind of what has led you to the point where you're at right now.
So right now I'm taking this call, born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, back here right now after graduation. Graduated from the sport management program at Syracuse University in May of 2023. Dr. Darvin was actually one of my professors at Syracuse, so it comes full circle. It's nice to be back here with her now. But yeah, I mean, throughout my experiences at school, I'm very excited to be working for the New York Islanders right now, being a big travel ice and roller hockey player my entire life. On campus at Syracuse University, was very involved in our sport management club, was the president there for a while, did a lot of work in the central New York community, lots of different guest speaker panels and different ways for the students to interact with alumni and different professionals in the sport industry as well. And I guess outside of the classroom, between my internships and my current position with the Islanders, I think a diverse set of experiences. I've had experiences working for Collectible Exchange, which is Brandon Steiner's memorabilia company, Point 3, which is a basketball merchandise company. Some experience in different professional leagues like NASCAR, and my seasonal position with the New York Jets after graduation, and now in my role as an account executive inside sales with the New York Islanders. So I guess that's a quick rundown of some of my different experiences, from memorabilia to merchandise to different leagues, but very grateful to be here and looking forward to it.
Blake, one of the things that I'm hearing is that you've really had an opportunity to kind of work across a number of different areas within the sports business. And many times, we talk to graduates, or I talk to students a lot, and, they kind of focus on one area, and that's where they stay focused. I'm going to work a little bit backwards. So we'll start from the present and then go backwards, if that's okay. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing specifically for the New York Islanders. What's the day-to-day like?
Yeah, of course. So my title is account executive of inside sales. So the incredible thing about working for the Islanders is, from top down, the leadership and team culture is really unmatched. We're selling UBS Arena, so it's only the third year that the Islanders are playing there. Concerts, Drake and Zach Bryan will be there this week, and obviously Islanders home games, which is nice. I've thankfully had the opportunity to go to many different arenas and stadiums around the country, and UBS Arena is incredible. So what I'm doing on the day-to-day there is the B2B side, so business to business, and the B2C side, business to consumer, selling our full service component of Islanders ticket packages, suites, group outings, etc. Main focus of mine right now, as we wind down the 2023-24 season and gear up for next year, is selling our full season membership package, season tickets to consumers and Islanders fans in the Long Island market, but also looking to expand that for any hockey fans, families, businesses looking for a way to host outings, entertain clients at UBS Arena.
And Blake, so tell us a little bit about, we did this with Caitlin, and I think it's a really important question to ask, because sport is such a different industry, right? It's not, your path doesn't have to be super linear. And especially if you look back even at like middle school, high school, dreams of what you were going to be when you grew up. Tell us a little bit about sort of what you thought you wanted to do in the sports space. We know where you've landed, where you are right now. Where did this come from? Where did your passion come from? What did you initially think you were going to be doing in the space?
So the funny thing is, actually, senior year of school, I didn't even know that I was going to end up in the sales space. I think the one thing that attracted me to the sport industry in the first place was, especially in today's world, sports is the one thing that has the power to bring people together, whether it's diverse backgrounds, races, religions, cultures, and that's something that I appreciate. Other than obviously the on-court heroics, on-field, on-ice heroics, I think it's the one thing where it's the bonding power and can bring people together. So in sports, I still remember freshman year when the head of the sport management program at Syracuse, Professor Veely, said, "Stand up if you want to be in the front office for a professional team eventually." And all 100 of us stood up. So I think definitely in high school and early in college, that was the dream. Obviously, I'll be the GM of an NHL team, NBA team, NFL team. But yeah, as time went on, I realized that wasn't the reality. But I really enjoy seeing different people come together in sales and cheering on their favorite teams.
You talk about sales, and this afternoon I was actually teaching in two classes for Professor Lane Wakefield down at Baylor. I don't know, Dr. D, if you've ever met Lane, he's a great guy, and he has a great sales course, sales in sports. And it's interesting because I asked a number of the students, how many of you thought, or how many of you were thinking of making sales, your future or the way that you're going to enter the sports business. But, let me kind of digress a little bit. And what sorts of skills and experiences do you encourage students to kind of pick up, along their way, not just in school, but even, post graduation?
The one thing that's really important is strong relationship building. I think that's important. It's just developing those genuine relationships from the start. Involvement in the community. I think that kind of ties to the relationships. I think a lot of my diverse experiences stemming from the emphasis at Syracuse and our sport management club and getting involved in our sport charity auction, interacting with those just to make their lives, like, sport is really active in the community. Every city, sport, it really stems from within that. So I think relationship building, involvement in the community, and last but not least, developing strong interpersonal and communication skills, I think is crucial to any role and any skill set.
And Blake, going off of that, so you mentioned before how many amazing experiences you had, even just at Syracuse, right? So some of the outside internships aside, what advice would you give students when they're getting in there, right? We give our plugs as professors, we tell people to get involved, but sort of if you could put yourself back as a former student, like even if you could go student to student, how would you encourage people to get involved very early, even on their university campus, to gain additional experiences?
Yeah, of course. I think obviously test out all of the clubs. Syracuse, from sport analytics to sport management to sport sales, they have tons of different opportunities. You're not going to fall in love with every club, but I think give it a chance. I think it's important to give everything a chance, start to build. Even if you don't enjoy a club as much as you thought, there's a good chance that you'll develop a friend from it that you weren't expecting. And some people who I really leaned on were my professors. I know a few that stick out to me are Professor Burton, I know, who connected us, Neil, Professor Dave Maloney, a few at Syracuse University who I really leaned on for guidance and advice throughout my 4 years as well. So I think lean on the people around you is big time.
I have to admit, I do know all the names. He's currently Dr. Rick. I'm glad to hear he's feeling better. And of course, Dave Maloney. Boy, there's a guy that loves his college sports. He must be in his heyday right now. I can't even imagine how he even sleeps right now. But Blake, as I look back on your work experience, you also worked for the Jets. Boy, you worked for two of my most hated sports franchises, the Islanders and the Jets. But tell me a little bit about that Jets experience.
Yeah, of course. So a fun fact actually about that Jets experience is I was offered my position for my seasonal role with the Jets the same day that Aaron Rodgers was traded on April 24th of 2023. So that's a fun fact, as I say, the Jets got two big free agents or two big players the same day. But that was an incredible experience, jumping right out of school, getting to work for my hometown team. I knew that as much as I loved Nashville and working for the Nashville Sports Council, I knew that ultimately my network, my family, my friends, I wanted to get back to the New York City market. The internship coordinators at Syracuse University opened the door for me to have interviews with the Jets for that seasonal position. Nothing but incredible things to say about the Jets organizations. I hopped right in, thrown into the fire, right? Because they had just traded for Rodgers. It was a busy summer with reaching out to businesses, decision makers, individuals to get all of the inventory at MetLife Stadium sold before the season. And I mean, it was incredible. It was once in a lifetime experience. I think getting to be in that environment, having a Hall of Fame quarterback on the team as well.
Yeah, that first game though, that was just brutal. That first series, the stadium was loud and it was just crazy. And then all of a sudden, it went real quiet, real fast.
I know. I was standing about 4 or 5 rows behind the Bills bench, and I actually had just helped escorting Trayvon Diggs into the stadium that night as well to watch his brother. So it was just an absolute pin drop in the stadium when that happened.
Jeez. And Blake, what's so interesting is that you've even lived in different places to gain these sporting experiences, and you have a real passion for where you are right now based on where you grew up. But given your capstone experience and things like that, how important is it for students to seek internships in different parts of the country, different parts of the world? Like, how does that also help you of create a well-rounded, resume as a sport management major?
I think it's crucial. And I think it's something when I first started at Syracuse that I didn't even realize. And Professor Michael Veely, really really owned in on it. I went on his Los Angeles immersion trip with him my junior year, so I got to see the sports scene out there, and also with my internship in Nashville. I think those experiences also made me really appreciate being in the New York City marketing growing up here, but I think it's really crucial to see how different organizations operate. Like, I know my experience with the Sports Council, to see how an event is planned, to see how the whole bid process works years in advance to bring a big time event down there like the SEC tournament. So there's a big buildup that a lot of the time you don't see behind the scenes in different cities, but it's really cool to see how the different organizations and cities interact and do their thing.
You talked about the Nashville Sports Commission, and one of the things about my first job in sports is that we're here to provide some inspiration, some motivation, but also some navigation. And one of the things about navigation is, there are so many areas, where you can get into the sports business. And one of the things I talk about frequently is sports tourism. There are so many opportunities. Almost every city has a convention and visitors bureau. And then off of that, they've got a sports commission. Tell me a little bit more about your experience working at the Nashville Sports Commission, because I think that's a great place to start your career.
Yeah, of course. No, it was incredible. So it's funny, actually. So as I was looking for a senior capstone, my parents visited Nashville before senior year, and they said, look, if you don't eventually live there, it'd be a great place for you to visit with friends over like your winter break senior year. And I ultimately ended up going there for capstone. So when I got the offer from the Sports Council, my parents were the first people to say, go down there and have some fun for a few months and get some great experience. What was so nice about the Sports Council is smaller commissions, you're hands-on in a lot of different areas.
Yes.
While my role was focused heavily on helping implement the events, recruit volunteers, attend site visits, etc. All 10 of us within the organization were responsible for helping sell product for SEC tournament. We were responsible for different marketing activations, planning signature events, both short-term and longer term. I know the goal long-term with the Titans' new stadium is for the college football playoff to be hosted down there eventually, the Music City Bowl. So I think the nice thing about a sports commission is you get to do so much internally with the organization,
sure,
but also interact with so many external stakeholders as well, like the city of Nashville, different volunteer groups, different leagues. So it was an incredible experience just to see, like I said, to see the way different organizations interact and see what it takes to host a mega event.
I am a huge advocate that students gain events and operations experience early on in their careers, whether that's through an internship or, one of their first jobs outside of their degree. How important has that been in your career path so far? Like working those events, even with the sport management club, right? And putting on major events and learning that system, working long hours. How has that really helped you prepare for your career in the sport industry?
I think it's crucial, right? In any role that I've been in with NASCAR, we had our 13, 14-hour race days with the Sports Council, obviously planning the events and also working the events. And then the Jets and Islanders. The Jets was 8 home games with long days, but the Islanders is 41 home games. So I think it's really important because the people you work with ultimately become your family. And those are the people that you lean on in the collaborative work environment. And the organization, the fans and the clients and everybody's experience, like your attitude is fans and clients are going to see that. Sure. They often say on the phones when I'm selling, right? If I have a positive attitude on the phone and I sound positive and excited about what I'm selling, which I am, the client and the fan is going to feel that as well. So I think it just fosters a really positive work environment. And it's important to see how all different pieces of the puzzle come together to make sure the event goes smoothly.
Blake, I meet tons of college students, as you can imagine, at SBRnet because, we provide data to like 250 schools. And I spend a lot of time. And also we've got an event called Get in the Game, which is focused on helping students of color get jobs in the sports business. But, one thing I'm picking up from listening to you is that, you seem very outgoing, and willing to really try anything. How does a student coming out of college, it may be a little shyer than Blake or a little shyer, and not quite as outgoing. What sort of things can you say to them to say, look, you got to get out there. You got to talk to people. What is that advice you would give to students?
Everybody started in your shoes. So even the VPs or the presidents of a company, ultimately everybody graduated. Everybody was a college graduate looking for that first job eventually. So everybody understands. I think the one thing that I love so much about the program at Syracuse is the alums were always so eager to give back to us. And I've seen that at the different organizations I've worked with so far, like the Jets and the Islanders as well. Everybody in a more senior position always wants to give that mentorship to me and make sure I learn. So I think it's important just to look, it's easier said than done to learn to be comfortable in the uncomfortable, but everybody's been in your shoes before. And I think it's important to take a step back, take a breath, realize that. And at the end of the day, we're working in sports. We're working in a fun industry, that it's entertainment. It's a lot, like our jobs are fun. So, and there's no other way to say it. So it's important to realize that and to embrace it every day.
And I'm sure when you were going into the sport management program, you absolutely thought you were going to be taking a research methods course. So I'm glad that you took that with me. But there are interesting classes that you'll take throughout your time in college. Is there anything you wish you had taken that you didn't that would have helped you in your career right now, or anything that you would give, current or future students some advice towards taking if you hadn't taken
Lyndsey
it?
just stole my favorite question.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I never got to do, and I still say to my parents, is at the end of freshman year, I was supposed to go with Professor Rick Burton on his Australia immersion trip to get to go abroad and see the sports culture out there. It got canceled, and I never had the chance to go abroad to see the sports scene in a different country. So while I've had a lot of experience in different parts of the country seeing how sport works domestically, I think I would have loved to have the chance to get to go abroad, even for a short period of time, not a whole semester, to see how sport works out there and the differences and how that can translate internally as well to the United States.
You talked a little bit about some of the clubs and things that you did, kind of extracurricular outside of, the academic part. Tell us a little bit about the ones you were a part of, because, I do talk to, a lot of students, and, I encourage them. I said, look, you've got to get experience and clubs and groups and, really give you an opportunity. Tell me about the ones that you participated in.
Yeah, so the two main ones I was a part of was our sport management club and then our club roller hockey team. First, when I came into college, I wanted to play club ice hockey, continue playing that in school. And then I soon realized that I'm not going to go to the NHL. I might work in the NHL eventually, but I'm not going to play in the NHL. So I thought it was really important to spread my time out and be able to get involved professionally and still obviously have that athletic portion as well. So the sport management club was a big part of my college life because I was the president of that club for my sophomore and junior year. A lot of our fall semesters there were focused on the community and our sport charity auction, and then our spring semesters was really focused on professional development opportunities and network of opportunities for myself and the rest of the students as well. And then the club sport aspect, it was really developing, like I said, a family, and continue to playing the sport I love as well. So I think it's a balance between the academic portion and also the physical, like sound mind, sound body, as cliche as it sounds. I think that's really important. But find something you love, people that you enjoy being around and that you think bring you up. And I think that's crucial.
And what's the future for Blake now? So what are you looking towards in the future? GM is not off the table, right? I mean, that could still be a real possibility, right?
No, please say no.
I mean, so Islanders really, annoy Neil with doing that, right? He'll still probably come to a game if you give him tickets. But what does the future hold, right? What are some things that you are looking to do, looking to accomplish, excited about, any of that?
I think what I love most about sales is the way I get to establish, activate, maintain relationships with so many different people. It could be a family of four, it could be the CEO of a business. I love interacting with different people. So in the long term, I think years out from now, I'd love to work on like the sponsorship space, selling sponsorships, partnerships for, I guess that's currently right now. I'd love my experience with NASCAR in that realm, getting to work with so many different business individuals, but also businesses to see the way they see ROI and their brand recognition as well. But obviously right now it's continuing to contribute to the Islanders organization as much as possible, and then sharpen and grow my skill set on the sales side as well with the team there.
Blake, you were a sports management major at Syracuse, correct?
Correct.
What did you have a minor of any sort, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, so I was a sport event management minor because I wanted to stay within the Falk School, and I thought it was important, like Dr. Darvin said, to gain a little more experience on the event side as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, I hear you. I mean, we talk about, game day experience and game day operations as being a huge part. In fact, again, at our event, Get in the Game, we actually had folks from the Baltimore Ravens that were there to talk a little bit about, what goes on behind the scenes at game day. We had a company, Sodexo Live. I don't know if you guys use them at the UBS Arena, but they're one of the larger catering companies at arenas and stadiums. And they talked a lot about, what goes into the back end of a game or game day operations. Blake, if there was one piece of advice that you could impart on future college graduates, or, you were Dr. Darvin invited you up to speak to the graduating class at the Falk School at Syracuse University, what would you say to them?
I think I'll take this piece of advice from my manager at the Islanders. He always tells me to be proactive, not reactive, and to go for what you want. I think there's obviously in sports, there's tons of people applying for the same jobs. It's a very competitive industry. And I think in order to kind of stand out and show that you want that position, there's going to be a lot of people that have strong GPAs. There's going to be a lot of people that have diverse extracurricular experiences. But it's the little things that are important, like consistent follow-up, handwritten thank you notes, looking the part, showing that you value somebody's time and guidance. It's being proactive in that aspect. If you want something, obviously don't be like a pest and annoying to somebody, but reach out to them. It doesn't hurt to send them a note on LinkedIn saying, I'm really interested, would love to schedule 15, 20 minutes to learn more about the role. I think it's important to show that you want something.
If I could afford you, I'd hire you with what you just said. I mean, you just hit so many of, I think, what I would call, important points about, not just being in sales, but being, respectful of people's time, thanking them for the little things like their time and sending a thank you note. I mean, I can't tell you the number of times I've done that and people have gotten back and said, hey, we recognize that you took that time and all that. And I also recognize, by the way, that you took the time to be on My First Job in Sports. Dr. Lyndsey and I want to thank you very much for being on My First Job in Sports. Blake, you've had so much to say. Is there anything you'd like to kind of throw in at the end?
Thank you both for the time. And it was an honor to be on this podcast with you both today.
And thank you too, Blake. You were a great guest.
Thank you, Blake.
I appreciate it, Neil. Thank you, Dr. Darvin. Thank you, Neil, for the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in to this edition of My First Job in Sports, presented by SBR Net. You can check out the video version on the SBR Net Video Corner on YouTube. You can also catch the audio version on all major podcast platforms. Just search for My First Job in Sports. My First Job in Sports is produced by Brad Mabey. You can connect with us on all social media platforms, including Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn, or check us out at sbrnet.com. Thank you for tuning in.